There we go. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Rebecca. I work for Southbrook Solar Farm, and I do the public consultation, lead the public consultation for this project on behalf of EDF Power Solutions and PS Renewables. My background is in public consultation, doing public consultations for smaller solar farms and other renewable energy schemes, as well as the larger projects which fall under the development consent order regime. I'll pass over to Melissa to introduce herself as well.
Thanks, Rebecca. Hi, everyone. It's Melissa McCurrow here. I am Head of External Affairs for EDF Power Solutions on the DCO's projects. EDF Power Solutions being one half of the joint venture of Southbrook Solar Farm. We have a number of DCO solar projects in the UK, and I am leading on consultation and stakeholder engagement and communications for those projects. My background is 20 plus years of doing similar roles across the industry, across renewables. I've worked in offshore wind and also on a number of thermal projects as well in a similar role.
Thank you, Melissa. As I say, this webinar is being recorded, and the slides and a summary of the Q&As that get asked will be put up on the website as soon as practicable after this meeting. This is the first one we are doing in a series, and we'll go through the other webinar times, dates, and topics. I'll just share my screen, and please do shout, Melissa, if you can see it. Is that all okay? Brilliant. So in terms of an agenda, sorry, my voice is going. In terms of an agenda, we'll go through some brief housekeeping. This is a consultation webinar about the consultation, and this was a piece of feedback we had from Hans of Marsh, that actually it might be a new experience for people, how to engage in a consultation, how to participate, and the different things that are available that we have published, and what those are, and how to engage with them. So we'll do a brief run through about the phase 1 consultation and what we learned from that, what we did, and how that's informed the approach that we've taken to phase 2. Along with we'll do a brief overview of phase 2, including the updated design, because I know that was requested as to be covered in this session, so I'll do that very briefly, and then how to respond to the consultation. I expect the presentation will take about 20-25 minutes, and then we'll hand over for a Q&A. Please do, on that note, submit your questions via the Q&A function of the webinar, or also the chat. That also works. I've written in the blue box there how to ask a question using the Q&A function. It should be at the bottom toolbar for you, and you type the question into your box. You can send anonymously, or you can have your name attached to it, and it will also show your questions and if we've answered the question. Unless I've said something which is not followed, that's absolutely fine. I'll take the questions at the end of the webinar and in the Q&A section, unless it's, as I say, a point of clarification. But please do submit questions during the presentations or as questions come to you. I know that can be a bit more natural rather than banking them all at the end. So we are recording the webinar. We will have a summary of the Q&A discussion on the website, and the slides will also be available. So I will kick off. We've done the introduction. We've introduced ourselves. So I thought I'd go all the way back to the beginning, really, and talk about what public consultation is. So public consultation is a process that involves the public providing their views and feedback on a proposal to feed into making a decision on a project. And we are very committed to making sure that everyone has the opportunity to understand and provide their feedback on the proposals for Southbrooks. We have these objectives, which are in our programme document about how we approach consultation, or pre-application consultation, I should say. And that's ensuring that our consultation is thorough, is open and transparent. There are enough opportunities for people who are interested in the project to understand and provide feedback on the project and see how that has influenced the proposals. We really want to gather high quality responses to and feedback on the plans to help inform the proposals ahead of us submitting an application to the planning inspectorate. And we want to deliver a consultation that is best practice for a DCO application. As Melissa may speak about, we are EDF Power Solutions is a long-term operator of the projects it develops. We want to make long-lasting relationships in the community, and that really starts here. I've got three sort of common misconceptions about public consultation here. Things I hear often, and I think we appreciate that there is a lot of consultation going on locally, and that might feed into some things that people say, and really, for the first, obviously it's a done deal and there's no point in responding as it's tick box exercise. I hope that we can show, and we'll touch on the design of the scheme and how it's changed since the last consultation, but I hope that process shows that we have listened and we are listening. This is not the final design by any means, and we are still very much looking for feedback. But the reason we do multiple phases of consultation is so that public comments can genuinely inform the plans. And I'd say the changes since phase 1 consultation has reduced the area for above ground development by 20%. We are still looking for feedback to be able to refine those further. And that's really down to the quality of responses that were submitted at phase 1. Some people might think this is the last opportunity that people have to comment on the plans. It is the last formal public consultation that Southbrooks, as the applicant, is proposing to hold on the plans. But just to reassure you that once the application is submitted, there are a lot of opportunities to comment on the application as part of the examination of the development consent order application. And we will do a whole nother webinar. We'll do some, do materials closer to that time. But that includes, making comments in writing to the planning inspectorate directly to share your views. You can also speak at public hearings, and those take place in local venues as close as possible to where the project is proposed. So by all means, not the last chance to comment, but it is the last consultation that we are proposing to hold at the moment before the plans are submitted. So a really good opportunity to share your views. And something I also get a lot is that, commenting on the proposal means that you might support it. So, if you point out where it could be improved, that means that you support it. We absolutely don't take any constructive comments or, design comments or feedback as assuming support. We consider everyone who engages with us as having an overall position on the project, and that is not undermined by any specific comments that you may choose to share with us. So just to provide reassurance on that point, that we don't take anything as implicit support. We understand that people have very strong views. We want to hear people's feedback, from everyone, whether you support the project, you oppose the project, or you're just not sure. So quick trot through phase 1 consultation. So we did our first phase of consultation on our early plans for Southbrooks between 18th September and the 30th of October last year. That picture's from Lyd Community Hall, which will be back in a couple of weeks. So what did we do as part of that consultation? So speaking to the nearest neighbours to Southbrooks before launch, we sent a newsletter which shared information about Southbrooks to about 8,700 properties in the area. We made information available through the website, and that included the consultation booklets, the exhibition boards, everything that you might, all the consultation materials were in one handy place. We also had deposit points, so physical deposit points at the Romney Marsh Community Hub. Public events, we held 5. We held Lyd twice, and then New Romney, Littlestone and Camber, with an extra drop-in at Dungeness B for power station staff, and advertising, print and digital and social media, all the places that you would expect, as well as issuing a press release. And the outcomes of that, we held a good few meetings. You're getting to know near neighbours, local stakeholders such as Lyd Airport, RSPB, Kent Fire and Rescue. We had 367 attendees across the 5 events, which we were really, really pleased with. 78 inquiries on our free phone, email address through the post, and ultimately translating into 99 responses, which we received, including from a number of those stakeholders that you see there, and good coverage from local and trade press as well. The 2 maps there, or 2 diagrams, I should say, on the left is the mode that people use to submit their feedback. So as you can see, predominantly virtual. Just over 3/4 of people submitted feedback virtually. Though some used the free post and some left those questionnaires with us at the public event. And on the right is a map of where people chose to provide their postcode, and it was not needed to submit a response, but those who did, that's where the responses were. So as you can see, probably where we expected, around Lydd and Herons Park, Greatstone, Lydd-on-Sea, and New Romney, and then stretching up to consider that sort of that wider interest in the marsh, when we marsh, so around Newchurch and Dymchurch and St Mary's Bay as well. And in terms of the feedback we got on the consultation, I split it into three, and this will be a running theme through the presentation. So generally, we talk about consultation, we talk about the scope. So what are people being asked what are people being consulted on? What materials and techniques do we make available and provide for people? And how do we publicize it? So those three are sort of the three core pillars, which we'll go back to. So the scope, generally asking for more information. The trouble with phase one consultation is it is quite early plans and proposals before the scheme is a bit more evolved. So a request for more detailed information, such as location of the battery storage, the draft voting montages, but biodiversity impacts. So a lot of requests for more information. These are all direct quotes from different people's feedback, just so you know. On the materials and techniques, we got quite a lot about different methods. So Q&A sessions with topic experts, such as this one, which I hope is useful. Holding consultation events at different times and dates, and providing plain language summaries, accessible materials, easy reads, large print maps, and also making sure that we're recording verbal feedback that are given at the public events. And lastly, publicity. So a few bits there. Making sure that we outreach to local schools, GPs, care settings, and parish councils. Working with Hands Off Our Marsh, which we've been really pleased to meet with since, to develop our consultation strategy, and we're very grateful for the time that they and other stakeholders have taken to inform the approach that we are now presenting for you, and how publishing information about how community feedback has influenced the design. So sort of you said we did, which makes us move on to phase two. And as I say, we have met with a number of people that's helped inform our approach. We're very grateful to everyone. Some of the key changes that we made was indeed this webinar, running the public events to reflect the comments that have been made on identifying who's technical expert, how we record verbal feedback and make sure that's really captured as part of the events, redoing door knocking for nearest neighbours, which I did yesterday, Facebook and LinkedIn advertising, coordinating with whom, and lots of suggestions for where we can put deposit points, who we should engage, and poster placements, and adjustments to the inner zone of consultation. So expanding out to capture some wider interest from St Mary's and the Marsh, communities to the north of the existing zone that we had. So with that context behind, and I hope that was helpful as a brief overview. I appreciate it's not been too long since we were there, but it feels like maybe quite a long time ago. So I'll just give a summary of phase two consultation, as well as the key changes to the design as a result of the feedback that we got from the phase one consultation. So the consultation that we are running, this phase two consultation, is a 6-week consultation, and that's running between the 28th of May, so today, up to 11:59 p.m. on the 9th of July 2026. The scope of the consultation, so what we're asking for feedback on, and you are very welcome to submit your feedback on anything that you might wish to comment on as part of this consultation. But when we define the scope, and we do have to define a scope, we're asking generally around these three things. So the design of Southbrook, so the location of each of the parts that make up Southbrook, so the solar, the cables, the battery, the substation, as well as the areas that we have proposed as environmental enhancement and mitigation. We've also published for this consultation, which we didn't have before, our preliminary environmental information, and that's our early assessment work that we have done on the project so far. So where we have identified likely significant effects, we have also added some information about how we would propose to mitigate those effects. So comments on the the environmental assessments themselves, the significant effects, and the mitigation measures. And lastly, how Southbrooks could contribute to the local community, including the development of a community benefit package, which we shared information on previously and is also very much in scope for this consultation as well. So before I go into the consultation itself, as I say, we just have a quick pause, run through the design and the key changes that have been made as a result of the consultation feedback. So as a refresher, this was the plan that we showed at phase 1 consultation. So we had 6 parcels of land going from Southbrooks A to Southbrooks F. We had everything in that sort of light to green colour as potential for solar panels and associated infrastructure, which included substation and battery storage. We didn't have identified locations at that point or potential locations, and everything in that darker green is not proposed for solar. Landscape mitigation and enhancement, noting it might also be required for cable access. We didn't have any cable routes either at that stage. So we consulted on this. We got a lot of feedback, and I will say, I didn't say actually that the feedback that we got from the consultation was incredibly high quality, very detailed, very helpful in informing our plans. And this is the plan, which is a bit of a result of the feedback that we got. So this is a plan which shows the changes made since phase 1 consultation. So just as an overview, we've got the same sort of colours as before. For the solar element, that's sort of lighter green, and the darker green being for areas which are remaining, for proposed mitigation enhancement, and were shown as that at phase 1. Then you have 2 more or 3 more colours on here, I should say. So we've got the purple, which we'll come on to maybe a bit more detail in a bit, about potential locations for the BESS, battery storage, and project substations. And then we have a darker blue. These are areas which were proposed for solar at phase 1, but have now been removed from the project. And this lighter blue colour, which is mitigation land that was proposed for mitigation land at phase 1, but has also been removed from the project since phase 1. So if I start clockwise and sort of start at A and move our way around, we'll go through what's been taken out, and then we can go through what's been put in. So parcel A, some changes to reflect residential views from properties, as well as some archaeological sensitivities and views from public rights of way. Parcel B, an area has been removed to ensure that there's open views on sort of either side. So when you're travelling down Romney Road, you have, look out one side and there's break in the solar, but there might be solar on the other side. So you're not going through solar on both sides at any one time. And then a little bit off the field, some fields edges there just to reflect Kingsmarsh Lane and other public rights of way through the project. Parcel C, the biggest change to this parcel is the removal of all land east of the disused railway line. So in between that and Dunes Road and the Romney and Dymchurch Railway. So 3 parcels here, really driven by the feedback we got from residents at phase 1 and discussions with Lydd Airport, particularly to the southwest, to understand their operational requirements and preferences. The bit to the north is archaeological sensitivity that has been removed from the top of the project. Parcel D, all land has south of the active railway line has been removed from the project in recognition of feedback that we got at consultation, being that the solar farm felt too close to Lydd. So we've removed all of the project land south of that railway line. And parcel E, similar story, all above ground infrastructure has been removed from parcel E. This is in recognition of its location. It is, as you will know, very popular for birds and biodiversity, given its proximity to RSP Dungeness. This is a 43-hectare area, and we see quite an exciting opportunity to manage that area for biodiversity for the lifetime of the project, which we think could have a really positive impact. And Southbrooks F, which was at the MOD, doesn't even get a label for Southbrooks F, but that has been removed from the project as well. So that's briefly what's gone out, and I'll just shift to the next plan to talk about what's gone in, because that's possibly a bit more clearer. So we have identified two potential areas for the battery storage and project substations. We are seeking feedback on that during the consultation, as we appreciate this is new information that's now been added. Now we have those locations identified. Previously at phase one, we just made the commitment that we wouldn't be closer than 300 metres from any residential property. So we've refined those areas and focused on two potential locations. We've also added in cable routes, and we have two different types of cable routes. We have our interconnecting cable routes, as you can see sort of here and here. I don't know, can you see my mouse, Melissa, when I'm moving it around? No,
yes.
I don't think.
Yeah.
Oh, you can.
Yeah, you can. Just maybe ever so slightly more slowly, because I think there might be a bit of a lag, but yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So we have interconnecting cables. We have two options to connect A and B together here. We have one line between B and C and one between C and D. So those would connect the different areas of solar together and to the project substation. We then have our grid connection cables. As you will recall, we have a connection to Dungeness Power Station substation here. To get to the substation, we require a grid connection corridor. And given the ecologically sensitive nature of the area, we have at this stage identified 4 routes or 4 potential corridors. And that also reflects that we have 2 potential different areas of the locations for the substation, which those cables would sort of need to feed down from our project substation to the substation, to the national grid substation. So we have 4 potential routes, say going through parcel E in some instances, so this would all be underground. And I suppose that's actually a change from last time, is we did identify the potential for some overhead lines to get us between the solar areas and the substation at Dungeness. That has been discounted, and we are now only looking at underground cabling. And that was really driven through our conversations that we had at scoping stage. There are a couple of little other funny sort of red lines coming off this plan. Those are access points. So for mostly during construction, but a couple there for operation as well. You'll see at South Bricks A, for example, construction access through the little chaining court, but then also operation access proposed up here at parcel C, not for construction, just for operation. There is a plan on our document library which sets that out in detail, but what ones are proposed for construction only, what ones are proposed for operation only, and which ones are proposed for both. And the last thing to say before we move on to the consultation itself is the permissive pathways that have been added on. So we have 3 potential permissive pathways which we are proposing at this stage. It's a lot of P's. So the first one is in South Bricks A, to connect. It's very well connected, as you'll be aware, with public rights of way in this parcel. But we have found a small permissive path, it's about 1 kilometre long, to connect 2 public rights of way together to sort of provide that sort of missing link. Parcel B, we have a small one up here, which would connect, which could sort of provide a walking route along Romney Road and then into the existing network, into the footpath, which is over here. And then parcel C, we've got a lot of feedback at phase 1 that the disused railway line is very popular for walkers. So the bit that is within the project boundary, or sort of abuts the project boundary, we have added in as a permissive pathway, so that can be used throughout the lifetime of the project as a permissive path, very much as it is now. We've also then we've kept that going west to connect into the existing network and provide a bit of a circular walking, or cycling, riding route around parcel C. That was very whistle-stop tour, and I appreciate that there's a lot of detail we could go into about the design, but we have the public events where our consultations or master planners will be on hand to answer any detailed questions about the design process. So Onto the materials and how all of this information is shown. So I like to think of consultation materials in this pyramid. So, people want to access information at levels which suit them, and how much they would like to engage in the sort of the technical detail of the plans and proposals. So hopefully this is a good visualization. So at the very bottom, we have the project website that has, as well as having all the information or consultation materials on it, it also has a very high level description of what the proposal is, the planning process, and how people can take part. The exhibition banners, which are available at the public events and also on the website, they have a little bit more detail, but are essentially a high level version of the consultation booklet that we publish. We also have lots of different maps, and we will also have at the public events a 3D model, a digital 3D model of the proposals. Again, very good for an understanding of the proposals and where they are located. And then we come up the chain and we have the consultation booklet. This is a 36-page booklet which is available on the website and sets out a summary of the proposals, the key environmental effects, so the potentially significant effects that we have identified, and discusses construction and operation in a good amount of detail, but very much written for a general reader who doesn't want to engage in sort of technical documents. Then stage up, we have our preliminary environmental information. This is, I say, all the early environmental assessment work that we have done to date. There's 4 volumes, and we'll go through what those are, but essentially it's split up by topic, so environmental topic, and then they're supported by that sort of highest level appendices, so appendixes to the preliminary environmental information, which provide even more detail about the survey work that we've done. And we've also published 4 draft management plans for this consultation, which I will go into in a little bit more detail now. So I think I've spoken about the website and banners, maps and model as much as required. So the 3D model will be available at events. There's a screenshot from another project there to hopefully give you a bit of a flavour about what it will show. We've used them on a few projects. It's a sort of a company that we send the parameters to, and then they work up the model and bring it to the events. It's very helpful to be able to go, you can drop yourself in any location around the project, toggle things on and off, go to different levels. So, going up to a first story or second story floor. And for this one, we've also added the Romney Hythe and Dymchurch Railway. So you'll be able to sit on the train and look out where you would be able to see the site and what that would look like from the railway to sort of capture that interest in the tourist element of the proposals, which is a key consideration here. So the consultation booklet, say written for a general audience. Then we have the preliminary environmental information. It's approximately 450 pages long. We've tried to keep it concise, and that was as concise as we were able to make it. I've had preliminary environmental information reports that are about 5,000 pages long. So we think we've done quite well in keeping this concise. I appreciate it's still quite a heavy read. For those who want to sort of dip in and out, we also have a non-technical summary of the preliminary environmental information on the website, and that's 17 pages and should give you a nice overview of the preliminary environmental information, which you might want to read first and then decide what you want to dip into further to avoid sort of reading the whole thing straight away. So we also have the technical appendices underpinning the preliminary environmental information, which is approximately 200 pages. Those are studies, methodologies, criteria, all the ologies and isms which underpin those environmental topic chapters. And then lastly, we have draft management plans. So management plans are usually submitted as part of a DCO application. So at the phase 1 consultation, we got a lot of feedback about how questions about how commitments that we make now would be enforced in the future in the event that consent was granted. So if we say that something will be managed, grassland will be sown early, and we'll avoid the nesting season, and this cutting regime will be applied it's all fine to say that now, but how do we know that it's going to be secured and that they're actually going to be enforced? And the answer is they're all in the draft management plan. So these are documents which are enforceable by the DCO, so they're legally secured by the development consent order, and they set out all of the management measures for different topics. And they're really good documents for getting into the detail, and that's definitely something we got from the phase 1 consultation is a request for that detail about enforcement and management measures. So we published 4 for this consultation. There will be a few more that are submitted eventually at the application stage. We thought these 4 were quite relevant. So we have a landscape and ecology management plan that sets out all of the ways that we would manage the landscape and ecology, but those areas that aren't proposed for solar, but also the bits in between the solar panels, solar arrays, the field margin. So sets out all of that. We also have a construction environmental management plan that sets out how we would try and reduce the environmental effects of construction. So dust, noise, air quality, all of those measures which would reduce those effects. Construction traffic management plan, a really key one. So that sets out how traffic would be managed to ensure that impact on communities is reduced. And lastly, the outline employment, skills and supply chain management plan, and that sets out how we would go about ensuring that as far as possible the economic benefits of the project can be felt in Kent and East Sussex where it's located. And in terms of accessing those, so they're now all available on the consultation website. They are at deposit points in the area. So we have Rye Library and the Romney Marsh Community Hub in New Romney again. So that seemed to work quite well. The consultation booklet and questionnaire will be available at the public events to take away. And we'll also have a copy of the preliminary environmental information and management plans, which will be available to view and discuss with the team. And lastly, anyone can request information. Anyone can request a consultation booklet and questionnaire free of charge to their address. We also have USBs with all of the information, which you can also request free of charge. Sort of save you having downloading loads and loads and loads of reports if you want to read them all. Any sort of printed copies of the preliminary environmental information we will consider on a case-by-case basis. Say it's quite a large report, so if there are any requests for that, we'll definitely consider how best to make that available and make sure that the information is accessible to you. In terms of the techniques, so we have 5 public events again, pretty much the same split. So the dates and locations have moved around a bit. So our first event is at Lyd on Thursday, the 11th of June, so 2 weeks away. And then we go to St. Peter's Church on Baldwin Road in Greatstone. Second, we were previously at the Warren in Littlestone, and it was just a little bit too small for our banners, and we thought with the 3D model it might be crunch time, so we've moved to the church. Then on Saturday we're at New Romney, we're at the new Maud Community Centre, and then the 3rd and 4th of July, so a couple of weeks later, we come back and we do Camber Memorial Hall, and then back at Lyd on Saturday for the final event. So if you came to an event last time, it will be quite similar to that event. So we'll have exhibition banners around the room. There'll be members of staff, members of the project team, members from EDF Power Solutions and Pierce Renewables available to speak. We'll also have topic experts at different events. So we had transport and ecology last time, which were well used and well received. So we'll have those disciplines back again. And so it will have all of the information that we will need that's been published. So have the exhibition banners, have the booklet, the questionnaire, preliminary environmental information and appendices, large maps, and the key difference from last time, I think, is the 3D model, which is usually the busiest area of the consultation. And to supplement those in-person events, we are running technical webinars like this one. They're all between 6 and 7 p.m. On the above or below dates, it should be via Zoom. It's important to stress, for those who can't attend an online webinar for any reasons, not being able to use Zoom or not having a computer or an internet connection, we won't be presenting any new information that's not available, in the preliminary environmental information in the consultation booklet. This is really just to have a topic overview of what's been published already. So it will cover the approach to assessment, the findings, and the work that's needed. That is all published already in the preliminary environmental information, and anyone will be able to ask questions at the events. If the relevant topic expert isn't there, we will be able to take those questions away and come back to people in the format that they would like us to come back on. So just to stress that we appreciate that webinars might not be available to everyone. We will still make sure there are enough opportunities for people to get the questions that they need to be answered. And probably don't need to tell you where to register because you are here, but to register, all the links are on the public consultation page of the Southbrooks website. And I appreciate I've gone over the 20 minutes I said I would, but very, very briefly, we are asking there are two main ways of collecting feedback on the consultation. So we have the questionnaire, digital and print, that asks the questions for feedback by questions. And you can also submit a free form response. So you can write a letter or you can send us an email. A lot of people tend to use free form. Just a note on the questionnaire. So we designed the questionnaire really to make sure that we've asked questions about different parts of Southbrooks, try and get answers on the design of Southbrooks, the proposed routes for the cables, the cabling routes, the permitted paths, and also any comments on the potential environmental effects. And construction. So even if you don't choose to use the questionnaire, hopefully those questions are a helpful guide when you're writing your freeform response about sort of the key areas that we are consulting on as part of that scope of consultation, which I was talking about a bit earlier, to try and guide what you might want to comment on. But as I say, you're very welcome to comment on anything you would like about the project. And that is me. So I will stop sharing my screen and we can go to questions. Okay. So, anonymous attendee, did RSPB submit any comments? I'll just answer that live. So, we have been engaging with RSPB and we've had a couple of meetings to discuss the project. I believe they did submit comments or certainly sent some written feedback after meetings to us, which we have been incorporating. And the area for Southbrooks E, we will be working very closely with them to make sure that it's being designed in a way which is compatible with their vision for the area and what they're currently doing now. Another anonymous attendee, do you actually own all this land at the moment or have options to buy it? So the land, or sort of, for solar generally is usually it's rented, so it's leased for the life cycle of the solar farm. For the areas for solar panels and above ground infrastructure, we do have agreements with those landowners. For the cable routes, which have come later, we are in active negotiations with all those cable route landowners and hope to reach agreements with those landowners as well. But it's not the case that we would buy the land. Being, and I appreciate when I say temporary, 60 years, we appreciate isn't temporary, but being, having a time limited consent as a solar farm means that, we aren't there forever. We build the solar farm, it's active for 60 years, then it's decommissioned and the land is then returned to the landowners. So not something we would necessarily seek to buy. How big would the project, answer it live. How big would the project substation be in terms of ground area, height, and also power? Amanda, I might have to take this one away and come back to you in writing just because I don't have the exact figures here.
Yeah, I've been furiously searching through the peer as we were talking, but I think probably it's best, Amanda. I mean, Rebecca and I are we are very up to speed with the project, but I guess not being engineers, I think we have a maximum potential square meterage in the pier, but configuration of that could be very different depending on surveys, ground conditions, and things like that. So we could give outline indicative sizes in terms of X meters by X meters, but we would probably just want to make sure that we ran that by our engineering team before we did that. So if we're able to come back to you on email, I think that's going to be more helpful than me trying to give an answer.
Thanks, Melissa. And Amanda says, I've had some feedback from local press outlets that the website is not actually very intuitive to navigate to get to the maps, info, etc. Just wanted to feed that back. Thank you. That is useful feedback. I will take a look at that and look at how we can make that a bit more accessible for people. I suspect maybe it's a case of adding more direct links to the document library so people are being navigated there instead of maybe just going through all the tabs. But that's good feedback. Thank you. Appreciate it. I've got 3 questions from Tony Heels, which I suspect I may also say, Tony, I will come back to you. So Tony's asked, what is the project build budget for this scheme? What is the planned length of time of the construction build? And how will you manage the water? Certainly for the construction build, I know we have that in our materials and I can definitely come back to you in writing. I will just check with our engineers and commercial developers if that's the top one is something that we are we are at a position to be able to say at the case, with the design not being final, it might be that that's not something we're able to answer at this stage. And managing runoff, it's a really good question, and I definitely won't try and answer it because I'll do the water experts that we have a disservice. I will say that we do have a water resources webinar as our next webinar, which is taking place next Thursday on the 4th of June. As I appreciate that it has been a really key topic of interest, given the Marsh's unique water environment. So please rest assured that will be covered, and we understand the importance of it. I will ask the question in advance, Tony, and send that over to you just in case you're not able to join that one. And any subsequent questions can come back to that. Okay. Alan Reed has asked, should you not be able to come to an agreement for cable routes, do you see compulsory purchase as an option, or do you have alternative options? So we'd always look to have, we'd always look to have agreements with landowners wherever possible. We see that's beneficial to both parties. All development consent order projects do come with powers of compulsory acquisition as standard, and that's typically to make sure that the project can be developed. These are nationally significant infrastructure projects. Compulsory powers almost comes as standard with projects to ensure delivery. So those are that remains part of the development consent order applications. However, we would always seek to have agreements with all landowners and are in active negotiations and discussions with those landowners where we don't have the option signed as yet for the cable routes. Part of this consultation where we publish the different routes of feedback is part of that discussion as well. So getting feedback on potential cable routes, especially places like the grid connection corridor, which are quite sensitive. We want to keep those options open and discuss them with the landowners, but also stakeholders like Natural England, the RSPB, the Environment Agency. So all part of the mix, which will go into those discussions as well. I've rattled through those questions. Oh, Amanda, yes. So Sycamore Solar Farm, Amanda says, Sycamore Solar Farm construction caused major issues as they were up against a winter deadline, but it damaged the drains and dikes. If you cannot construct in winter due to waterlogged ground and summer is restricted due to the wildlife season, how will you manage seasonal challenges on the marsh? And this is a question which we have been asked before, Amanda, and I will make a note of it and send you the information because we do have that available. But as part of a previous response, we've corresponded with stakeholders who have raised this. So I will come back to you in writing and get that information over to you. Okay. Thanks, Amanda. I'll just give it a second in case there are any questions that come through. I appreciate people might still be typing, so I don't want to stop it prematurely. But if there's no questions coming in a moment, we'll close the webinar. I'll just make a note or sort of run through the actions that we have to come back to you. So Amanda, I will come back to you on our parameters for the project substation. We'll take a look at the accessibility of the website and just make sure that all those maps and information are really easy and clear to access. So thank you again for sharing that. Tony, on the build budget where we can, the planned length of time of the construction, and how runoff will be managed. And Amanda on Sycamore Solar Farm construction, and how that's managed, the feedback on the Sycamore Solar Farm, which I say has been raised, and how we would propose to do that. Thanks, Tony. I look forward to seeing you all at the public events and at other webinars. It will be me and me at all the webinars, so you'll get used to this face and get used to the background. I don't think we've had any more questions through, so I will close the webinar now. Thank you for your time this evening. It's very, very appreciated. I hope you found that helpful. If you do have any questions which come to you afterwards, the contact details come through to myself. So the free phone number, which is 0800 038 3486, comes straight through to my mobile. So you'll always get me when you answer it. Or answer it, and the email info@southbrooksolarfarm.co.uk. Again, that comes through to myself. So if you do think of any more questions, please do just get in touch. We're very happy to help and look to get responses over to you as soon as possible. So thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it. And I will stop recording now and say